The muddy pond of the mind. A young monk's battle with desire. High on a quiet mountain, veiled in soft clouds and whispers of wind through pine trees, stood an ancient Buddhist monastery. The air there carried the scent of stillness. Within those stone walls, a gentle rhythm of life unfolded each day, the rhythm of silence, meditation, and simple living. A wise master guided a small group of disciples, each one walking the path of mindfulness with varying degrees of steadiness. Among them was a young novice, recently ordained, eyes full of curiosity and heart eager to walk the way. He was sincere, he bowed a little too earnestly, meditated a little too rigidly, but his intentions were pure. The master often watched him with quiet compassion, understanding the turbulence that often hides behind youthful stillness. Each morning, the disciples descended the mountain to a nearby village to collect alms. It was both a ritual and a teaching, to walk among people yet remain untouched by distraction. The young monk cherished these journeys, feeling the earthy ground under his feet, watching the world from behind the veil of his training. But one morning, the simplicity of his path was shaken. As he knocked on a modest wooden door, a young woman opened it. Her hair was still wet from a recent bath, clinging in soft curls around her face. Her skin glowed with a freshness that startled the boy. She greeted him with a gentle smile, her eyes kind and calm. He bowed, almost forgetting the chant of gratitude he had memorized. She offered food with reverence, and he accepted it with trembling hands. He returned to the monastery, but his mind had remained behind. That smile lingered in his memory like a scent in his robe. That night he sat in meditation, but her face appeared behind his closed eyes. He tried to bring his breath to the forefront as he had been taught, but the breath only carried her image deeper into his chest. The next morning, though monks were instructed to visit different houses, he found himself at her door again. And again she smiled, offered food, and spoke with soft respect. Her presence stirred something within him, unfamiliar, magnetic, and quietly overwhelming. Days passed. Mornings became a pilgrimage not of spiritual discipline but of secret longing. One day he arrived too early. The woman opened the door, slightly surprised, and said gently, "Venerable sir, I give alms only after I have bathed. I will go to the river now. Please wait." He nodded. But as she walked away, something inside him, some quiet temptation, rose. He began to follow her, staying hidden among the trees. At the river, she disrobed modestly, as women often do when bathing alone in nature, and stepped into the clear water. From behind a tree, the young monk watched. At first, a pang of guilt pierced his chest. "What am I doing?" he thought. But the desire, having grown roots in his unguarded mind, overpowered him. Lust crept into his heart like smoke, insidious, expanding, and intoxicating. He could not look away. Her image, once innocent, now became a fire that consumed his discipline. When she finished bathing and returned, he ran back and pretended to be waiting. She offered food as always, unaware of his gaze that had pierced her privacy. This became his secret routine. He no longer spoke to others in the monastery. His meditations became strained, shallow. When the bell rang, his heart remained elsewhere. The master began to notice the dullness in his eyes, the absent gaze, the tightening around his shoulders. One evening, the master approached him gently and asked, "Is something troubling you, my child?" The young monk lowered his head. "No, master. I'm just feeling unwell." The master said nothing more but began to observe closely. The following morning, before dawn broke, the master silently followed his disciple down the mountain. From a distance, hidden by foliage, he witnessed the entire scene. The early visit, the polite exchange, and finally, the young monk sneaking behind trees to watch the woman bathe. The old master's heart sank, not in anger, but in quiet sorrow. for he saw not a sinner, but a boy lost in the web of his own mind. He walked up to the monk, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. The young monk froze. When he turned and saw his master, his face turned pale. His body trembled, shame flooding his veins like cold water. He tried to speak, but his voice faltered. The master said nothing. He simply took the boy's hand and began walking. They walked in silence for over an hour, deeper into the forest, higher up the mountain. Finally, they arrived at a muddy, stagnant pond, dark and still, with a film of green on top. The master released his hand and said gently, "Can you cross this pond and come back?" The young monk hesitated, confused. "Master, the pond is dirty. If I cross it with my robe, it will be spoiled." "So?" the master asked. "I thought, perhaps I should remove it." The master stopped him. "Why would you remove it?" "Because, master, the robe is precious. I don't want it to become dirty." The master looked at him with eyes like still water and said softly, "Ah, so you are unwilling to dirty your robe, but you allowed your priceless mind to be stained without hesitation." The young monk looked down, shame flooding him anew. The master pointed to the pond. "This is what lust is like. At first it seems harmless, shallow, easy to step through. But once you enter, it clings to you. And the more you struggle, the deeper it pulls you in." He turned and looked directly at the boy. "You saw beauty. That is not a crime, but you followed it without awareness. And now, your heart is entangled. You watched her in secret, not once, but again and again. Do you see now how desire, unchecked, becomes deceitful?" The boy fell to his knees. Tears traced lines down his face. "I have lost my way," he whispered. "Please, forgive me." The master knelt beside him. "Falling is not your defeat," he said. "Staying fallen is. Rise again, not just in body, but in mind, stronger, wiser." That moment, beside the muddy pond, beneath the sky that bore silent witness, was the young monk's true beginning. He returned to the monastery, not with a robe of pride, but with the humility of someone who had seen his own shadow. He no longer went for alms. Instead, he sat by the edge of the forest each morning, breathing with the trees, learning to watch his thoughts the way one watches clouds, passing without grasping. Desire still came, but now he greeted it like an old acquaintance. "I see you," he would say silently, "but I no longer follow." Years passed. His presence grew quiet and deep. When he spoke, his words calmed others. When he listened, people felt seen. He became a revered teacher, not because he had never stumbled, but because he had dared to stand up after falling. To his students, he would often say, "Victory over others is fleeting, but victory over your own mind, that is peace without end. The mind is sacred. What you allow inside becomes who you are. Guard it, cleanse it, and you will walk freely wherever you go." And sometimes, when a young disciple asked about temptation, he would smile gently and tell the story of a muddy pond, a tearful awakening, and a robe that remained clean, while the mind learned to cleanse itself.